Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Awaken Way podcast. I have been so excited to record this interview. I met Gregory Coleman as a result of going to the Illuminate Film Festival, where we showed our film Wolf's Message, where we, much to our astonishment and great delight, won the Director's Choice Award. So that night we were celebrating at a dinner, and I was sitting next to a man who is a medium, and we got to talking, and he told me about a session he had with a healer named Gregory Coleman. I'm always interested in hearing about healers. As those of you who follow my work know, I suggest that people find healers by word of mouth, that energy work is real, that you find somebody who truly taps into the spirit world. Well, when this medium mentioned that after his session with Gregory, his readings improved amazingly. He started to get names left and right. I tuned in even more because to me, that has been a challenge for me, getting accurate names in readings. It's just one aspect of connecting to spirit. But I said, oh, please give me this man's information. So I reached out to Gregory. He answered right away, and I was able to have a session with him before I even left the festival venue, Santa Barbara, California. We did it by phone, but it turns out he was right there in Santa Barbara, and we got to meet very briefly. But Gregory and I have been communicating since because he removed a block in me that I didn't even know I had. And it changed things in my mediumship dramatically. Over time, we've been communicating more. I've introduced him to some people that I felt could benefit from his healing. And the same word keeps coming up to everybody I referred him to: amazing. And so today is not so much about referring you to Gregory's work, although I refer everybody I meet to him these days, but it's about hearing the fascinating story of how he became a healer and why healing works. So this is going to be of benefit to all of us, and it is my great delight to introduce to you Gregory Coleman. Gregory, welcome to the show.
Suzanne, nice to see you. Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We haven't really seen each other face to face that much, just the brief moments in Santa Barbara and then one quick Zoom meeting.
Yeah, it was like 4 minutes on State Street, and you gave me a copy of your signed book.
and you gave me matches to burn a piece of paper on which I had written information that came out in our reading, and I performed a little ceremony, and wow.
Boom.
Boom. Yeah.
I like the word magic.
You do like the word. Sometimes I use
love
it and I correct myself and I change it to wonder, because I want people to know that when we say magic, it's real.
It's real. It's real. Well, that's fantastic. I'm happy to hear that you are still evolving and moving on this journey.
Aren't we all? Aren't we?
Amen.
So let's go back to the start of your healing journey. I'm sure that you have many facets to it, but where are you drawn to go to take us to where you are today?
You know, I was thinking about this, which I don't like to. Um, when I was 4 years of age, I didn't talk. And my parents were very concerned, so they had me go to every doctor. We went all throughout England, going to specialists. Why Gregory wouldn't talk? At the age of 4, I went to my mother's side and I stood by her and I pulled on her dress and I said, I don't like it here. I want to go home. And that was kind of an opening of what's going on, right? It was a window. And she heard it. My mother's a medium herself, and she heard what I was saying. And she was open and assisted me in knowing who I was and what I was going through. That was a
And
blessing.
to anybody who's new to this work, what I interpret as what you said was you don't like it here in human form on earth, right? You want to go to your ethereal home, your eternal home.
100% correct.
Wow.
So I settled down, started to talk. Then at the age of 7, I recall going into my parents' bedroom at 7 o'clock in the morning with a bottle of water. And I woke up my mother so excited and I said, I've got it. I've got it. I figured it out. And I had this bottle of water and I turned the bottle of water upside down. The water came pouring out on the bedroom floor. And I started to talk to her about the bottle being the physical
Huh.
body and that the water was spirit.
Wow.
And just as the water leaves the bottle, spirit can come, leave the physical body. And so that really was a super awareness understanding of where I'd been, what I was aware of. Um, those are two big events at a very young age. And then I kind of went through this black period of nothing. I knew that I had to go to school, I had to be normal, so to speak, and I left that all alone. And then I decided later in life, I struggled not fitting in, but I had very good intuitive skills of fitting in, which was
Mm.
also a gift and a blessing.
Hmm.
Um, being able to acclimate to my circumstances. And later in life, I graduated high school at 15 and a half, and I knew that I wanted to do something in the world to help people, and I wanted to become a doctor. So I started college and I was taking anatomy, and I recall dissecting a cadaver, fascinated with the human body. But I kept asking these questions to the instructor of what makes the body work?
Uh-huh.
What about the soul? What about the spirit?
Wow.
And he kind of kept looking at me saying, well, those questions will be answered in physiology. That will come later on.
Mm.
I wasn't satisfied. So I took physiology, the same questions, wasn't satisfied. You may learn that in religious studies, wasn't satisfied. And I had such a hole in my heart, such a yearning of wanting to know. It was painful because I knew there was something more. My father informed me that there was an acupuncture college opening in Santa Barbara.
Mm.
And he said, why don't you go check out this college? I went to the college, I met with the administrator, and she started talking about chi, energy, life force, spirit. And I saw everything suddenly in color.
Mm.
This is where I needed to be. So I dropped out of college and I enrolled immediately into acupuncture college. And in the college, in acupuncture and oriental medicine, you palpate the body, you take pulses, and it was pretty evident very early in my training that I could touch a body and I knew what was going on,
Mm.
and I shouldn't have. For example, I recall one of the first instances was I sat next to this young woman in clinic and I took her pulses and I said, you're pregnant,
Oh, yeah. You're not supposed to know that from
right?
touching a pulse.
And I recall she screamed and kind of said, that can't be so, that's impossible. And I said, well, do a urine test and take a test. And she did. And she came to the school and said she was pregnant. And so suddenly I was on a fast pace,
Mm.
evolved very, very quickly. And I knew at that point there was a calling. I was aware of something that was deep, and people got better.
Mm.
Sometimes it was just talking, communicating, people got better. So that was kind of the beginning of the journey for me. of the awareness of healing, and people can get better. And also this awareness of energy, spirit, and that we're more than just a physical body. So that was fascinating. And then this was fascinating to me was the school approached me and they said, your tuition, your checks are bouncing, and we need to address your tuition with you.
It's
Now,
not
I
good.
didn't have a job. I was just devoting my whole time to studying. And I said, well, I don't have a job. And they said, well, maybe you should try and find one. Otherwise, we're gonna ask you to leave school. And I was so dedicated to studying and reading and practicing. I was put off with the thought of getting a job. So I went to the class, one of my classes, and I stood up in the class and I said, does anybody know of any position? I'm looking for a job, otherwise I'm going to have to leave school. And this one person stood up and she said, I know somebody, and they need a male companion. They're incredibly wealthy, incredibly billionaire status, and she wants a companion for her husband. And it's a day job. And so this was a night school that I was going to. And I said, well, so I went and interviewed. She hired me on the spot. And in 1 week, I had a brand new car.
Oh,
I had an apartment. I got more money per month than I ever thought was possible. And my job was to be with this lady's husband. Now, he was apraxic and he had aphasia, which means basically he was brain dead.
mm, mm,
But he could walk, and I'd take him on drives and take him out to lunch. We never, ever communicated. He couldn't. There was nothing there. Appeared that there was nothing there to the outside world.
right.
But in sitting with him day after day after day after day, we started to communicate.
I knew you were going to say that. How cool
Yeah.
is that? Because of
And
course the soul is there.
I get really emotional and t the tears draw because it was such a divine gift. And it was 5 years that I stayed with him, 5 days in a row for 5 years. And there were times that I didn't want to be doing this. I wanted to be off with friends and traveling and doing things during break, but that was the job. And she left. After she hired me, she said, now that I've got you, will you commit to staying with him
Mm,
until you don't stay with him,
wow.
until he dies or something? Well, you talk about spirit in action. I had finished school and I was still with him. And one day I was in the library studying to take my boards, the California State Board for acupuncture. And I was sitting in the library studying, and I suddenly jumped up and I said to my partner that I was studying with, we have to go now.
Hmm.
And she said, we just got here. I said, no, I'm sorry, we have to go. Something's happened. So I put my hand in my pocket and I pulled out my car keys. And as I pulled out the car keys, the key to his house came flying off the car key and bounced across the concrete floor.
Hmm.
And I knew something's amiss. We ran to the car, drove very fast to his house. And when I got there, an ambulance was coming up out of the driveway and he had passed.
Wow. Yeah.
I had that job pretty much from the beginning of school to a week before my state board,
Oh,
5 years.
goosebumps.
It was divine intervention, a gift.
Yeah.
And also being with him helped me develop tuning into his wants, his needs. A lot of people say that they label me, they say you're a psychic, you're a medium, you're a channeler. And my response always is to that is, I don't know what I am, I just am. I don't want to
True.
be defined.
This is
I
true. I
will,
introduced you as a healer, but in some of your sessions, you bring through people's loved ones who have passed. You definitely know things psychically. So you are
yeah.
what you are. You're very tuned in.
And Suzanne, I always say everybody gets what they need.
That's right.
Everybody gets what they need. What they can handle, they get what they need. And so from that point on, it continued and continued. I started practice. I built a very big practice very quickly.
When
And
you say it continued, you mean the opening to
the
spirit?
the opening to spirit,
Mhm.
more aware, more awakened, more accepting. It's a
I'm I'm curious before we go on, and I want to come back to the awakening more to spirit, but as you communicated silently with this man who was nonverbal, you were speaking to his soul. So did you discern that his soul was fine, or was he frustrated, or did he feel trapped?
He was the most happy, content man I ever met in my life. With these circumstances, and his wife had left him, and it was just me and him in the world. He smiled all day.
Hmm.
He was he wasn't aggressive, he wasn't abusive. He was an incredible human being. He was the founder of the Avon Corporation.
Oh, wow.
So he was quite a man, and he was in such peace of where he was. It was incredible. So the next part of my journey was, as we do, I met somebody, fell in love, got married. I was building a practice. I had two children, and I wanted to provide my children with so much more than I was. I wanted them to go to the best schools in the country, the best education, and I completely turned off this work.
Wow.
And I started a business in my garage, shut down the practice,
Wow.
and I started this business in the garage of building wheelchairs for handicapped people, specialized wheelchairs. And quickly the business grew to a nationwide company. It was very successful.
Huh.
And here's another story for me that it just brings tears and I want to cry, the emotion. One day I'm in my office in San Francisco in a suit and tie, the businessman. And my secretary said, there's a gentleman here that is demanding to see you. And I said, does he have an appointment? No. He's very persistent. He must see you. I said, okay, let him in. And in came this man about 4 feet 5 inches with a turban, and he was Indian. And he said to me, Gregory, you're off course. This is not what you came in to do. And Suzanne, I looked at him and I felt like a kid with his hand caught in a cookie jar
Because you knew it.
because I knew it.
Yeah.
And I asked him to sit down. I felt very guilty and I wanted to hear what he had to say. And listen to this. He said, could you get me a can of Coca-Cola? And I said, we don't have any Coca-Cola in the office, but I can get you tea, coffee, some water if you'd like some. And he said, no, can of Coca-Cola. I said, I'm sorry, sir, we don't have anything like that here. And he said, oh, you do. If you go to your break room, you'll find a can of Coca-Cola on the table. And I said, okay. And I got up, following his direction. And lo and behold, there was a can of Coca-Cola on that table. So I went and I got the can, I brought it to him and I said, here you are. He said, no, it's not for me, it's for you. I said, okay. And he said, I want you to hold this can of Coca-Cola in your hand in front of your third eye, the pineal gland. I hold it there, close your eye, exactly. And I complied. I just did, no questions asked. Okay. And he said, close your eyes. And I heard him starting to, yo, kind of like this. And then I said, hey, this is getting warm. This is really getting hot and uncomfortable. And I screamed and I removed my hand from my forehead and I looked in the palm of my hand and it was just ash smoldering and burning in the palm of my forehand. And he said, I have just opened your spiritual eye and now you can go back to work. And he got up and left. My secretary came running in because she heard me scream. He walked past her and I just sat there stunned, speechless. And I said, go get him. And she went to go get him and he was not there.
And I knew you were going to say that too. I love that you had a witness to this, because as I'm listening, I'm thinking people are going to wonder about this, but they can wonder, that's your reality. Yeah.
Well, 1 week after that, Suzanne, it just gets more crazy. A week after that, I got a phone call from a man asking if I was interested in selling the business. And I said, yes. 2 days later, we were signing papers and it was done.
Oh.
I walked out and I went home and I spent 4 years in complete isolation, a hermit. My house was my monastery, and I studied and studied anything and everything that I could on spiritualism, everything. And it was a difficult period of my life. I had to stay in isolation because if I went to a grocery store, I would start talking to the checker and tell her, don't worry about your husband. I know he's going through chemo
Oh.
and he has cancer, but he's going to be just fine. And I was so hypersensitive.
And so do you directly relate that to this third eye opening that occurred then?
I do.
Mm-hmm.
After 4 years, a lot of depression, a lot of being lost, but at the same time, knowing that I was doing what I needed to be doing. There was that inner knowing, though I struggled.
And you're still married at this time?
Oh, the marriage fell apart.
Yeah, but how could it stay if you're a recluse?
My
Yeah.
my life was at that point was buying a Mercedes in the morning and a BMW in the afternoon. And she had grown accustomed to that. I had no interest anymore in material financial gain. Nothing.
Mm. Mm.
Um, I was done. And that was difficult for her. She knew what I had experienced, and she saw me daily going through things. It was real, an awakening. And no, the marriage fizzled. One day, Spirit told me to design a web page and to call it Gregory Knows and to put it out there on this thing called the internet.
Mm.
I built this web page, had somebody build it. I put it out there on the internet, and my internet web guy said, you've got one house line, you're putting this out there nationwide. You've got one line, you're offering 15 minutes free. You're crazy. I said, oh, I'll be fine, not worried. This is how it has to be done. And we went live this day, and this was my first call. She said, "So you think you're good?" I said, "Yes." And she said, "So you're going to be able to help me?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "And the first 15 minutes are free, correct?" And I said, "Yes." And then I said to her, "By the way, you can't do it." And she said, "What do you mean I can't do it? You don't know what I'm going to do." And I said, "Yes, I do, and you can't do it." And she said, "Okay, smarty pants, if you're so good, what am I going to do?" I said, "I still get choked up because this stuff is just so." I said, "You're going to commit suicide." And she said, "You can't tell me that I cannot commit suicide if that's what I'm planning on doing." I said, "I can." And she said, "Why can't I?" And I said, "Because you're pregnant. It's not just you're killing." And I said, "I'll tell you what, go and get a test, a urine test, go to the pharmacy. And if you're not, I'll pay you for the session." I called up the web guy. I said, "Take me off. I don't want to do any more." I was done. And I sat and waited for her call. And she called me back and she cried and she cried and she cried. And she said, "How can I thank you? You just saved my life and you saved my child's life." And from that second on, I knew it was time for me to come off the mountain. It was time for me to come out and go to work. That this is what it had all been about. And I talk to people every day, as you do, and you hear their struggles and you hear their pain and suffering and the obstacles. And I've learnt through my own, they are nothing more than stones paving the way to the future. And each and every hardship polishes you unknowingly at the time why, but later on you understand why. And there's this thread of it all leading to something greater, to your greatest and highest potential, no matter how difficult it appears at the time. And that was not just a philosophical lesson for me, but an actual, I sacrificed, I gave up, but then it opened my whole life to this whole new chapter of reaching people, helping people, which is what I came in to do. And I have story after story after story after story after story, events, supernatural occurrences that are unexplainable. Um, what I have learned out of this so far in the journey is anything and everything is possible. And relax. No matter how difficult it appears at the time, relax.
Yeah.
Had 2 years ago now, I was told that I was riding my bike. I'm a bike rider. I like to do 5, 10 miles a day on my bike. And one day I was on a ride, and at the end of the ride, I got off the bike and I collapsed. And here's a fit guy, seemingly so. 6 hours later, I'm talking to doctors and they said, "You've got two brain tumors, cancerous. You've got lung cancer, pancreatic cancer, liver cancer. We're so sorry."
How long ago was this? I missed that part.
2 years,
That's 2 years.
2 years ago.
Okay.
And, in the blink of an eye. So then I went through this very dark night of the soul, isolation, um, self-healing, really self-healing, evaluating what it was, where did it come from, going deeper, deeper, deeper into self, soul experiences. And through that process, I learned that issues in tissues, blocks, accumulation, trauma, grudges, resentments, it's energy and it accumulates if you stay in that state. Now, I had preached this and I had practiced this, but I hadn't done any self-care in this.
Hmm.
And so now this was my moment. And lo and behold, now, as the doctor, we hugged each other and we both cried and cried and cried. And she said, this was 6 months after the diagnosis. We have no explanation, but there's not any cancer in your body. It's gone. So another lesson of hurt, pain, suffering to the greatest awakening of anything and everything is possible. But I didn't do it. Spirit.
You're right. Yeah. What do you say to those who have or listening now who have dear loved ones who passed from cancer or weren't healed by a healer? I know what my guides have said, but I'd love your perspective on that.
Yeah. Well, actually, I had that situation occur yesterday, and my response to this particular individual, there's a bigger plan, much bigger than what you see. And the passing of this loved one for you, in this case, it was a husband, and is for your well-being, for your development. And you're going to go on to do greater things and be of service because of this experience. Yes, you're suffering. You're in grief. You're in loss. You're in shock. But this is polishing you. And it was an agreement that he also had, knowing coming in, and you did too. And so everything has purpose. Everything has purpose.
And
And
look
I
how
know
your journey changed because you had the personal experience of getting that diagnosis and going through the trauma of having the cancer. And yeah, there are so many things we don't realize.
And I can relate now to that space that you go into when you have that diagnosis because I've experienced it. So now I can connect better with that individual because of my story. It's made me better, more empathic, more dialed into where they are and what they're going through and what they need and a different perspective. And how did they get there in the first place? And so then now Spirit's working with me with a lot of cancer patients
Mm.
because I have, let's say, the frequency and the vibration of that experience now.
So I would like people to not blame themselves when they have something wrong with them, but to dig into it and see, is there a deeper meaning? Is there something that I need to be seeing or working on? Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. For me personally, what I discovered in that, um, it was actually just what you alluded to there. It was actually about self-love.
Mm.
My first wife had died of cancer, and I punished myself because I couldn't help her.
Mm.
So I actually came from a completely wrong perspective. I was to blame.
Mhm.
And that was part of my healing and my journey of discovering that was a false belief system. I wasn't to blame, but I took that on.
Mhm.
And then that self-persecution created it within me. So when I started to love and forgive all of those things that I'd built up within me, it manifested in form. Just exactly what you said. It is about self-love.
Yeah. As you know, I consulted you in the past month with some physical issues I was having, and you and several other healers, and I truly knew all along there was something deeper happening. And I'm going to share that in a workshop October 4th that you know about, the Forgotten Center, because it led me to the awareness of a key that all of us can use to connecting that I was missing, and to the importance of balancing the energies in our bodies. And I am really looking forward to sharing the amazing insights that you brought to this, that it's almost comical the way you reached out and you said, let me look into this. And you came back the next morning and you asked a question. I said, oh my God, this man is so tuned in, because you zeroed right in on something that was going on in my life. But I'm only bringing this up now because, again, this, what I've been going through has been very, very physically painful, yet it has led to insights that I needed and will use for the rest of my life. And you asked me how I'm doing today, and it is the best day that I've had in a month, physically pain wise. And I have really used every moment to mine it for all it's worth spiritually. That awareness is very helpful.
I very often refer to the caterpillar to the butterfly, right? The transformational process it's not easy. It's just not easy.
Not easy at all. We all,
No.
did I really sign up for this?
Yeah. I joke around with people a lot. Um, I just do. I have a funny sense of humor. But I really tell everybody, I thought that when I was coming in, I should have a life like Mick Jagger. And this is not what I signed up for.
Not at all.
But apparently I did. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. Now I'm curious. You said that every session you have is different. Uh, Twice you've had me go through a process where I draw a triangle on a
Yeah.
paper. Do you mind sharing what that's all about, that triangle?
Yeah. The triangle is a universal symbol of transformation and change. So whatever the situation is, well, you can't kill anything. It's an impossibility. Even a thought wants to live. Even a thought. And that thought wants to grow and multiply and such. And so negative builds on negative, builds on negative. Um, Energy only has three things that it can do, is law of attraction, transformation, and repulsion. It's the only thing energy can do. So the triangle represents transformation. So if somebody is going and in a dark space, blocks, etc., we can't kill it, we can't destroy it, we transform it, right?
Yep.
So the triangle is a universal symbol of transformation and change, but also under the sacred laws of geometry, the triangle, as depicted by the Great Pyramids of Egypt, can be utilized as a portal.
Mm. Mhm.
And that triangle itself is a portal that can access other realms and other dimensions, which is stated in the Bible. My Father has many mansions. And I utilize the triangle as a portal to spirit. And then if you look at the triangle, there's 3 points of a triangle: the past, the present, and the future, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And it goes on. So I utilize the triangle as a portal, and events of the past will put in the portal of the past, present, future, the physical body, mind, body, and soul. So whatever level I have somebody write in that triangle certain things. And as you know, a lot of my sessions involve, we write all of this down and then we burn it.
Yeah. Twice I've done this and it is effective.
And
Yeah.
that's because it's a mirror of actually what's taking place within the body. And when you burn the paper, you don't see it, but it's leaving like water evaporating. The fog is there 1 minute and then it's not. Where did
Yeah.
it go?
It's like you said, it's being transmuted.
Transmuted.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is I've not gone to any classes or workshops or everything that I've done has been taught to me by each and every client and or spirit. I certainly will get information. I think one of the most profound things that I had happen, and I have to mention this, and this tears me up, and I've had a lot of things, so many things. But I'd met you and I got your book and I came home. Very nice. Thank you very much. Right? Because I
Well,
don't.
let me just back up. So here I'm all excited about this session, and it was profound. I'm going to share some of that in my workshop, but you identified this block that I didn't know I'd had. I had been carrying around for 30 years, and there's really an ironic humor with that. But I needed to pay you, and I needed matches, and I didn't have either because I'm in the hotel room and I didn't have matches and I didn't know how to pay you. And I said, "Where are you?" And you said 10 minutes away. I wanted to meet you so badly. I had to give you a hug. So it was all a ruse just to give you a hug and meet you face to face because we did this by phone. So I said, "Bring me matches," and you did. It was just so great. And when I saw you on the street, it was like two souls that have known each other forever. We hugged. I gave you the money, you gave me the matches, and we said, "Thank you so much."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't meet anybody. I'm
Yeah.
very private. I stay away. But hmm,
So I forgot I gave you a
so
book. I didn't even know I had a book
and you
with,
gave me the book.
huh?
And so I suddenly learned who you were after a period of time. And but I only just came clean to you about this maybe just a few weeks ago.
Did.
And this was the profound, and this is once again, this emotion comes up because spirit overtakes me with emotion. I was sitting in my garden and I was sitting in this quiet, serene, beautiful space that I have, early morning meditation. And I jumped up and I came running into the house. My mother's in the house. And I said, "I have something to say. Listen." And she knows my tone. She knows obviously me very well. And she sat down immediately and said, "Tell me." I said, "I've just received information from Spirit." And she said, "Gregory, what is it?" I said, "I'm going to meet somebody very influential, a teacher on a global platform." And I said, "That's what I know." I met you 1 week later, and we did that session a week later. Then I found out who you were, and I went, "Oh my goodness gracious." Now, what's interesting about this, and I think about it from time to time, is because I didn't know you, you didn't know me, but Spirit knew both of us,
Our souls know each other.
our souls,
Yeah.
and Spirit. So this was not psychic, this was not mediumship, this was strictly spirit driven. And that's when you have one of those aha moments of it makes sense of everything. So spirit is always dialing you up, if you will, on your cell phone, giving you information, giving you information. And the key is being open to that, being aware that it's available,
To all of us. Yes.
every single person.
Yeah. When you
And
say
so
I'm a
I thought
teacher, that's my teaching that we all can open up to spirit, perhaps not to the level you or I have, because this is our calling, but we're all souls. So we all have a direct connection to spirit.
we're all united in this oneness, this infinite connected oneness. And that's when you realize, to me, that was a confirmation of the oneness. We
Yeah.
never physically met. I'd never read about you. And here we were brought together. And, you hear it every day. Somebody, you ask them, "How did you guys meet?" Right? A married couple. "How did you meet?" "Well, I walked into a restaurant and I saw this girl sitting there and I knew I was going to marry her." I hear that very often because spirit is always, always, always present, guiding, working with you. So people say, as they do to you, how do you dial in? How do you awaken? How do you improve the connection? And I tell everybody, this is my one-liner, I've never worked so hard in my life at doing nothing
That's great.
because it's the doing nothing. No left brain. I need to breathe so many times. I need to breathe in through my nose and out through my mouth. It's really just such a state of calm, knowing, allowing.
May I clarify something?
Yes, ma'am.
I believe what you were just saying is you don't need a specific breathing ritual. You don't need to have certain rules. It's just that relaxing into the flow. Is that what you were saying?
It's relaxing,
Yes. Yeah.
relaxing, because that's the state of awareness. You're not processing, you're not thinking, left brain, left brain, left brain, rationalizing. And that's been my experience. I still meditate 2 hours every single day. Um,
What is happening in that state for you? Are you simply receiving, or are you engaging higher consciousness? Are you talking with spirit, or are you just flowing with whatever arises each day?
well, I uh, I'm connecting personally to spirit rather than for a client or somebody I'm working with. And I'm just keeping that connection open. The awareness of keeping it open. It's like uh, keeping the pipes clean in your house by using liquid plumber, right?
Mhm.
You to improve the flow. I look at simple things and see big pictures like a hose, a garden hose. If it's kinked, the water doesn't flow. And for me, it's an unkinking of getting out of my thinking of the clients that I've worked with today, letting it go, releasing it and letting it go, and trusting and turning it over. Because sometimes I want to control the outcome.
Sure,
I'm
that's human.
human. I'm human. And if there's somebody that's in a lot of pain and a lot of suffering, I mean, I want to go into action and do something. And I have to take myself out of it and go into trust and go into faith and stay in those two places that basically thy will be done. They'll get what they need. And so it's letting go of control, expectations, and such. So that's
That
what the
that
meditation does.
if I may interrupt, that's what's so important when people come to you, because I've had several people that reach out to me after they had a session with you, because I told people about you on my monthly connection webinar a couple months ago, and whoo, did you get a lot of
Yeah.
connection, as I knew you
Yeah.
would. And some people reached out and said it wasn't at all what I expected, but it was what I needed. And that's
Ah,
what's so cool. I tried you out because my experience was so profound. I wanted to just see how you worked with other people. So I sent several members of my personal staff, my team, to you. And each of them was astounded because you revealed things they didn't realize were challenges, yet were very real. And I love that. You don't know what you don't know.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. In doing this work and in anybody that is wanting to develop, I always use this analogy. I keep it simple, and I come back to playing golf. And if you look at the techniques of golf, the harder you swing, that ball's going to go in the wrong direction. You're going to slice it. It's that momentum, right? And that takes practice. You can't sit for 2 hours and get into that state. It's commitment. It's practice and practice and practice until it just becomes so fluid. It becomes a state of being. And so it's that it's a work in progress. For me now, I'm here, but I want to be here.
Yeah, me too.
And you do too. That's the beauty of life. It's wherever we are.
We're evolving. And that's why I love that we both realize there's no limit to what we can achieve. And it's wonderful not knowing how far we can go. So you just let life will be done is what I live by. We have our own desires, but it's so much fun to watch it evolve. Yeah.
It's been quite a journey of discovery. And I think that's what life is. A lot of people ask me things and I say, why do you want to read the last chapter of the book first? Enjoy the journey, enjoy the book. I get very anxious and want to know, and I want to know. I'm human, but I have to slow myself down. As what you need will be given when you're ready. As they say, when you're ready, the teacher appears. It's so true. So true. But spirit is undefinable. So don't put spirit in a box. That's a bumper sticker I'm going to come up with.
I had a workshop with one of the modules. It's called Getting Out of the Box. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, because I put spirit in a box. And so part of the meditation is no, 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 no. I also I mean, in my life, I have met some profound people that have changed my life. And I recall at the age of 19, I was asked if I was interested in seeing a psychic healer in Los Angeles. This was when I was in acupuncture college. I'm 19. I didn't know what psychic healing was, but yes, I'll be there. And I spent 1 week with this woman, 8 hours a day, and she could put her hand in people's bodies and pull out tumors.
Huh.
And I just watched her in amazement. And I've seen her take eyes out of people's faces and hold the eye in her hand. So profound. And
This was in California?
this was in California, this was in Los Angeles. And I spent a week with her. We never spoke. I was so intimidated and frightened of her, right? That she was this supernatural human being with such abilities and such. I was just in awe. And the last day that we were together, she turned around to me and she said, Gregory, it's all in the mind. And I think about that every single day. And it's taken me 30 years to figure out what she was telling me. It's all in the mind. Meaning, what are your beliefs? What have you been taught by teachers, by parents?
And your limitations.
And the limitations.
Yeah.
And so I had this experience of being with her. Seeing is believing that anything and everything is possible. And you go to the greats, you go to Edgar Cayce and some of the greats, they're all teachers of anything and everything is possible. And so I try to stay in this anything and everything is possible.
Yeah.
And I am where I am, and I'll get to where I need to be when I get there.
I'm thinking back on your story of the short man who came and had you hold the Coke can up. It sounds fantastic to us. But I wrote the biography of Mavis Patilla, and she talks about a carrot coming up from the floor out of nowhere, manifesting with lots of witnesses. And we hear these stories and we say, how is that possible? Because this physical world is not as solid as it looks. So we ask, well, why don't these things happen more often? Because then the game would be over. Then we would realize it's all spirit. It's
I
all the
love
mind.
that.
In the meantime, we hear these stories, they're tantalizing. There's something in us that I want to have an experience like that, or I want some more. And then we become dedicated to practices of sitting in stillness and talking to spirit and trusting and surrendering. I know there's a reason that the sky doesn't open up more often.
Absolutely. By the way, that I've called him Yogi. I don't know what his name is, but I this man showed up in my life once a year
Oh,
for 10 years after that.
no kidding.
There'd be a knock on my door. I move around a lot. I'm kind of a gypsy. I'm San Francisco, LA, all over the place, Mexico. And suddenly there's been a knock at the door and he comes in. And I've been with parents, family members, friends, and he comes in and he'll sit and have tea.
And they see him.
And they see him.
Okay. Yeah.
And then he leaves. And
Does he come just to make sure you're staying on track? Surely he knows.
you know, Suzanne, this is really something else. I don't ask him anything. I don't ask him his name. I can't explain it. I just, hi, lovely to see you. Come on in. And then I just shut up and listen.
What
Okay.
does he have the same message every time? Or
Well, every time there's something different that he brings to me. Um,
I
now
would get
this
quite
bit,
excited when I see him at the door, like, ooh, what's next?
well, I mean, this then can go into another story of when I saw a very, very gifted man, and I walked into his office. I'd heard about him. And I literally walked in, sat down, and this man looked at me and he said, "You know that little yogi guy that came to you?" And he said, "Do you know why?" I mean, I just about fell over. Nobody knew this. And he said, "In a previous life, you were in a monastery with him." Well, at 7 years of age, I packed a suitcase one time. 7, little kid, packed a suitcase. It was bigger than me. And my parents said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to Tibet." How does a 7-year-old know about, So when he told me you had been in a monastery with him and studied with him, it's that sense of knowing.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for the message. I've always wondered. And so the story continues chapter after chapter. It's exciting. Sometimes it's so confusing, but there's always an answer when you're ready for the answer. And so I was looking, my life has been such a journey, but it hasn't been mine. Spirit has put me, guided, supported every single step of the way.
And that's why your website is not gregorycoleman.com. It's spirithealsme.com.
Well, I don't even know how I came up with that because I didn't. I hear about people like Elton John that write a song in 45 seconds. Some of the greats,
Yeah.
they just receive it. It's a gift and they receive it. So I thought about that the other day when I looked at Spirit Heals Me. I said, how did you come up with that? Because I knew it
Yeah.
was given to me.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I've never written a book. I've never done a conversation.
Yeah. This is your first interview, right?
It's my first interview.
It's not going to be the last because I know where you need to go. But because that's my role. I now hear from you to introduce you to the world. And it's my honor truly because you clearly have a gift and you're here for a reason. And if we don't put you out there, the yogi's going to come and get us.
Right? Yeah. And he does, right?
Yeah.
If you think about it, if somebody can be in a marriage and they can be 10 years and they're fighting for the marriage and they're not happy in the marriage and da 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 da, something eventually happens. What doesn't serve your greatest good is taken away when it's taken away. And a lot of times it will be, well, I always say, well, what did you get out of that experience? What did you learn? What won't you do again? Why did you
It's not
choose?
punishment. It's part of the journey.
It's part of the journey.
Yes. Yeah.
And to your point, which is the truth, and it's so profound, is there are no wrongs. There's no wrong turn, making a left when you should have made a right. They're just lessons that you grow from and evolve from.
I did a reading just the other day, and a mother is beating herself up about her child's passing, and you see how it could have gone this way or that way. And what you just said is a discussion I had with my dear friend Lynette. You know, there, every decision leads to more growth.
More growth.
Mhm.
And, in Autobiography of a Yogi, which I think is a wonderful book, he says, we're all living in the same apartment complex, and it's a 1 million-story skyscraper. And some people are in the basement, and some people are on the 3rd floor, and some people are on the 100,000th floor. But the point is, we're all in the same building,
Yeah.
wanting to go to the floor higher because the view's better.
Yeah. I love that. I thought of the book earlier. It came up, so I'm not at all surprised that you brought it up. And that book I read so early in my journey, so easily 19 years ago. And it was full of so many fantastic things, but fantastic in the form of, this is really hard to believe. And yet my soul knew it was true. And this is how I feel when I hear some of your stories, because I know that you're on one of those upper floors because you're supposed to be. You might not like it, but you are. You have this view that many don't. I've witnessed it. I've experienced it. I've healed as a result of it. And I love our newfound relationship of helping each other. And I'm certainly growing from knowing you, and I'm just thrilled that you're helping others.
Suzanne,
What?
look at your story.
Oh,
Your story is so profound.
we all have stories. We were talking about this before we came on the air, and
See, Spirit took you, new path,
that's right. Yep. Yep.
new path,
Oh, yep.
transformation, change. Don't get too comfortable.
Not at all. I have to ask you a total aside here. Why is there a goose on the shelf behind you? Is that just a decorator item?
It's just a decorator item. There's
Oh.
nothing. Yeah. I'm not someone in the house that has Buddhas and statues of spiritual beings.
Okay, so this is the perfect example of, my last name is Giesemann, and anytime this morning a flock of geese flew over us, and I say, look, Ty, that's my husband. I say, it's our cousins. Don't look up.
Yeah.
So I just find it amusing that there's a
Oh.
goose there. This is one of those moments when there is absolutely no spiritual meaning to that. It's not even a synchronicity. It's just something I had to ask.
I just wanted to make you feel more at home and more
Oh,
comfortable.
thank you. I am quite comfortable in this milieu. I think that this is new for you, but I thank you so much for coming, being willing to come on the show and share your story with us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
An honor and a pleasure.
I've already shared with people. I'll say it again. Your website is spirithealsme.com. And so far you've been amazing at responding to people very quickly when they reach out by there's a phone number on the website. There's an email address, and I am in awe of how many readings you're able to do and how quickly and how accurate they are. It's just stunning.
Thank you so much.
Let me just frame this another way, though. I mean, I called you a healer, but you're a medium and a psychic. Why would you recommend people come to you? Yeah.
Why would people come to me? That's a phenomenal question.
It
I
is.
love
As
that
that
question.
came out of my mouth, I said, yes.
That's a thinking question.
Yeah. What's the good intention to have for reaching out to Gregory Coleman?
To find out what they're wanting to find out.
Okay.
whether it's a health issue, a relationship, a financial, um, spiritual, because spirit, what I've learned, provides the answer.
Yeah,
I've
it's not you, right?
It's not me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's a lot of people say thank you for being, the conduit to spirit. Or they thank me and I say, don't thank me, thank spirit. This got nothing to do with me. I'm just the translator.
Well, you're
And
pretty
so
phenomenal.
so to answer that, if somebody is in want of needing of knowing something, um, and they want to have a communication with spirit, I would say that's when to connect with me.
And that takes us back to something you said at the very beginning that I made a note of here. You said sometimes just talking, people get better. So it's not that you have this hands-on thing you do, but you help them identify blocks. You help them see issues that they may not have even known were an issue.
Yeah.
Part of it.
And as I remember, I spent 4 years in isolation reading everything, reading everything, reading everything, reading everything. It wasn't just reading, it was I would read one paragraph of something and pray on it and meditate on it,
Mhm.
focus on it. And um, in the Bible, the truth sets you free. So very often I'm telling somebody a truth, and that's the healing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Is hearing the truth.
I remember doing a session for a woman and she asked a question of her mother across the veil. And I said, your mother's showing that this is the issue and you really need to do this and this and this. And you don't want to do it because this and this and this. And you could see her face and she said, if I had one of those little buzzers here, the whole time you're talking, I just want to go,
Yeah.
because I don't want to hear it, but I know you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that would be a simple Gregory response. You get what you need
There we
from
go.
spirit.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have a gift of being attuned to spirit, sharing what that person needs. So I would say if anybody reaches out to you because they have a need of whatever it is, to be open to anything.
I've had things materialize in people's homes after a session. Houses sell the next day. You just don't know how. There's no explanation. Spirit can do anything.
And yeah, well,
Anything.
wow, that might be a title for this show. But you're
You
right.
know, 2 years ago plus, I was on Highway 101 traveling over to Malibu. I used to live in Malibu. Spirit removed me from Malibu just before the fires. My office was in Pacific Palisades,
Uh,
and I got up and left. Hello, thank you, Spirit. I didn't have to go through that.
yeah.
But one night at 10 o'clock at night, I was driving from Santa Barbara back to Malibu, and you have to go over this mountain pass. It's beautiful. Um, and I was driving, it was a full moon, and there was nobody on the road but Gregory. Nobody at all, either way. And it was a lonely feeling saying, wow, if anything happens, I'm out here alone. And suddenly I saw in my rear view mirror that there were lights, another car approaching from behind. And I gauged from looking in the rearview mirror that these lights were going very fast and it was getting close, too quickly. In a very short amount of time, those lights were 1 feet from my rear bumper. And they were pushing me to go faster and to go faster. Now, if I'd have gone any faster, I would have gone over the ravine. And there was no pull out. And I panicked. and I knew I was in trouble. And I called out. And I'm saying this because I was taught about the power of the spoken word. People talk about power of thinking and feeling, but the power of the spoken word. And this was a lesson for me in the spoken word. And I screamed, and I screamed out and I said, God, I don't want to die. Help me. Suzanne, the car blew up. I saw a flash in my rearview mirror, a big white massive flash, and then a nanosecond later I heard an explosion. I looked in the rearview mirror in awe, and the car came to a halt behind me, and I saw two people getting out. It was a full moon. I could see. I just kept on driving. I didn't stick around. And I got back to my home and I called my spiritual practitioner partner and I said to him, you'll never believe what happened. You'll never just believe what happened to me. And he said, oh, the electrical circuit of the engine fried. It was fried. Those people got out, they were fine. But he said to me, do you remember what you told me this morning on the phone? I said, no, what did I tell you this morning? He said, you called me to tell me to be careful that they are using automobiles as weapons and they're coming after us. And he said, this is very profound that you've had this experience. But he said, it's also another lesson from spirit, how powerful we all are.
Do you recall when you said that to him, who you thought they were?
Well, I do believe that there are dark forces, and I do believe we're in a spiritual war, a spiritual battle. There's just a sense of we are. Um, and I've had many, many situations in my life, things like that have happened. I think when you're trying to bring somebody to the light and helping them to the light, you're a threat. I think you probably have had some personal experiences along those lines too. But what I thought about now, after my event, and learning the story of your stepdaughter, the bolt of lightning, because to me, this was a bolt of lightning.
And Wolf, you read Wolf's Message. That's the book I gave to you in our movie. He was
Exactly.
struck and killed by lightning as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think how profound that portal opened. You can't make it up. I mean, sometimes I feel like I should check myself in. And, I'm a communicator. I talk to my family because sometimes you just say, this is just unbelievable. And you have to steady yourself because, wow, I'm still in a physical body on a physical plane. And so it takes a lot of steadying sometimes. I'm 50% in spirit and 50% in a physical body. So I'm always looking for that equilibrium, keeping
That's
balance.
the subtitle of our movie, Wolf's Message, is Two Worlds, One Heart.
Two worlds, one heart.
Yeah. So this is an interesting note to end on. You brought in this thing of fear, but I know you don't live in fear of dark forces.
I do live in fear.
Of
Well, it's now I'm getting those emotions of my fear, my block is not succeeding at what I came in to do. And I really want to go out knowing that I get an A plus because I don't want to come back.
That's a very human fear. That's very interesting to me.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's clear to me you're living on purpose. So,
Yeah. You
yeah.
know, there's a wonderful movie, Schindler's List.
Mhm.
And at the end of the movie, he's very emotional. And he's saved many, 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 many lives. And he gets very emotional and he says, but I could have done more. And that's how I feel.
We're programmed for that, though. We're programmed for that.
Yeah.
That leads to evolution. So I forgive you for
Thank
that.
you so much. I needed it. See, I'm working on my stuff. We always are.
That's right. I love that. Wow. Okay. Well, Gregory, thank you so much for your time today. I know you've given us a lot of us food for thought. I kind of understand now why some podcasters out there put the disclaimer at the beginning. Some of the things you'll hear here are not necessarily the views of the host. Well, you've blown some of my views out of the water today. So I know that you speak from spirit's words, and I know what you've done for me, and I know that you have opened people's minds today and given them a lot to think about. And
Enjoy
I
the
know,
journey.
yeah,
Enjoy the journey.
exactly. It's an awesome journey. And if we can use that word, magical.
Magical.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Suzanne. Pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. I hope you'll watch this one again, full of wisdom and mind expanding information. Take it to expand your journey, and we'll see you back here next time.